Yeah, wanted to basically have a conversation with you and kind of get to know you a bit better, and um, sort of talk to you about the creator economy, personal branding, brand collaborations, kind of explore that a little bit with you. Ran a we ran an activation with you recently, which was a huge success. Which your feedback was fantastic on it, and I just thought would be a good idea to kind of explore that a little bit, but also just have a general chat about yourself. So, did you want to maybe intro yourself a bit and just tell us who is Tom Boston?
Yes, that's always a great place to start. So, yeah, like I say, my name's Tom. I am on the marketing team at a company called My Sales Coach. So I'm heading up brand growth. We offer coaching as a subscription based in the northeast of England and serving the EMEA region. So it's been a new venture for me. I only joined a couple of months ago, but I'm very much enjoying learning more about sales coaching for one, and continuing to spread the word on LinkedIn, which Guy, I have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing that. Right.
You do. On that, have you in the past been coached yourself in sales?
Yeah. So I kind of look back and I think to myself, yeah, we had some coaching, right? And I've certainly worked at organisations where we've had some form of like training. But it's only since joining My Sales Coach, which I've realized, no, I've never had like one to one dedicated coaching with an expert. It's always been like, oh, we're going to do, an hour on this, or we're going to do half a day on that. But I've never had someone that I'm working with so closely, like we do with the coaches at My Sales Coach.
So, yeah, the reason for that question, because I was wondering if some of um, the content creation is perhaps based on, or you're calling back to a sales coach you potentially worked with across your career, and if you've kind of picked up or seen mannerisms from them that you're building into your content.
Well, I mean, a lot of what I create is based on things that have really happened to me, right? So when you see Barry, who is miserable because he's not hit his target, that's just me a few years ago, right? In a call center, that kind of really happened. And when you see a sales manager in one of my skits saying some kind of crazy things, that's always based loosely, but a little bit of truth in all those kind of terrible managers that I've had in the past. So I think with comedy, like truth is so important, and I try to keep my content as truthful as possible. So yeah, I'm certainly inspired by people that I've kind of come across. In terms of the actual creation, um, I guess self-taught, right? Kind of figured it out as I went, which is something I'm a huge advocate of. Right, everyone's always looking for the answers, but often you can answer a lot of the questions if you just start doing, right.
Mm. And does being creative and wanting to entertain does that come natural? Is that something that maybe like were you the class clown, or when you've been in a work scenario you've been the life and soul, etc. Is that always been a thing, or is this kind of something very you're laughing? I guess it's not, but is this something that you've had to really kind of push yourself on?
Mm. Yeah, it's the phrase "life and soul" that kind of made me laugh, because I could just think about my wife and people that know me being like, "No, he's probably one of the probably one of the most boring people that you could meet." I think what it is, right, is I've always loved humor. I've always loved kind of comedy,
Mm.
and people have always said to me, you're a funny guy, right? So like, even at school, right, I'll give you this example. The last day of school, they had a picture of everyone on the screen, and they had like a slogan or a tagline or something about them. Mine was the funny boy.
Okay.
Right. Now, that wasn't necessarily me being the class clown, but I always enjoyed thinking of ways that I could make people smile and kind of laugh. And I've been doing that for years. So it is nice nowadays to be doing that professionally.
Yeah. And before we get into the chat, who are you? If you had two comedy heroes, who would they be?
Yeah, it used to be Ricky Gervais, but
He's putting it. Same for me. Yeah.
saying some crazy things, and
Punching
you
bag.
know,
Punching it.
I love The Office. The Office was, you know, fantastic, and it has filtered into my brain. I was saying this to someone yesterday. I can't not be a bit like David Brent
Yeah.
when I'm being a sales manager. It just comes naturally. Like I look into the camera and I give it all. Give all the Brentisms. But no, Ricky Gervais's recent work and his stand up, dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And like you say, as a father of two disabled children, I have had to take Ricky Gervais off my
I,
my hero list.
I know it's a
And
it's a sad state of affairs. I totally and utterly
it,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, it's a shame, but I do quite like his writing partner, Stephen Merchant. I love his work. He does a Christmas. He did a Christmas video movie called Click and Collect,
Okay.
which is one of my favorite Christmas films. So yeah, definitely Stephen Merchant is up there. You know, and I've always loved, you know, the classics. You know, your David Jasons, your Del Boy,
Yeah.
and you know. Fawlty Towers and all that kind of all those British comedies that
Yeah.
I kind of grew up on because that's what my parents watched.
Yeah.
Still hold them in really high esteem.
And just to finish off, I always, if I watch your content, I overthink Office or I think Phoenix Night.
Yeah. Yes, I think
But
the Peter Kay kind of.
that could just be the accent though. That could be the
I think the
bit of what.
Peter Kay boom was again so huge when I was a kid, and again certainly I think that parts of his comedy have kind of
Yeah.
filtered into into my psyche because yeah I would love to I would love to see him live. Never see. I know he's doing a load of shows at the moment.
Good. So on that front, so in terms of the the comedic piece, how do you define? How do you personally define your personal brand? Because obviously that's something that is huge for you and you've cultivated on LinkedIn and social media. Yeah. How would you define it in your words? Because I guess a lot of other people would go, "Oh, it's a stand-up routine, etc." But I'm guessing you look at it on a different level.
Yeah, well, my on my profile, I say that I'm an accidental influencer. That's the kind of way I introduce it, right? Because it was never an aim for me to kind of build a following. Never mind of thousands and thousands
Yeah,
of people, right?
yeah,
I started creating content when I was in sales because I thought it would make cold calls a little bit easier if they've maybe seen some of my videos on LinkedIn. That was as simple as it was. Nowadays, I've kind of embraced it a little bit more, and I was on stage a couple of years ago, and someone announced me as a comedian,
yeah,
and you know, the kind of 15-year-old Tom Boston was like, "Oh wow, this is what an amazing thing to be described as a comedian."
yeah.
You know, because I would never kind of use that term. But
Mm.
I think nowadays I, you know, describe myself as a comedy content creator, and I've
Yeah.
kind of embraced that, right? Because it really is a core of what I do on LinkedIn.
And just to add to that, I very much in the B2B space. I would suggest very much on the on that side of the fence.
Certainly, yeah, B2B sales is something that I've kind of really focused on because it's what I've done for coming on a decade now.
Yeah. Okay. If we if we think about the relationship that a content creator, particularly one from a LinkedIn perspective or B2B perspective, has with their audience. I'd really like to dig into that a little bit. We had a conversation a few weeks ago about it that we thought it would be good to explore. So I'd really like to get into that. In terms of how if I think about digital marketing, I've been in digital marketing for over 20 years, and if I think about a lot of the ways audiences are described or users have been described, it's almost that word user, or
Mm.
or especially with the advent of data, it's kind of people have become data. People and data have been bought and sold, and very kind of anonymous, faceless. But I think when I think of this space or the creator space, it feels quite different, and especially the audience to creator relationship feels quite different. I'd really like to hear your perspective on that as being someone who obviously has built an audience and then engages with that audience on a very regular basis.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think the first part of it is the access that you kind of feel like you have to a creator on LinkedIn. So if you leave a comment on a YouTube video, right, it feels very disconnected. And will that person even see the comment? You think probably not, right? But there's something about LinkedIn where actually, Guy, if you go ahead and you leave a comment on my video, I'm going to see that, right?
Yeah,
I might respond. We feel like we're kind of like having a conversation in the comment section. I don't know what that is about LinkedIn. I don't know if it's because it's so intrinsically linked to people's organizations, or because we have these kind of personal brands on there. But that word personal, the conversations do feel very personal. And I don't know about you, Guy, but I certainly feel like I've got a personal connection to the people that I enjoy the content of
yeah,
on the platform. And I think the access thing is a key part of it. I think secondly, LinkedIn is a friendly place, and you don't get a huge amount of hate. You get the odd comment here and there, but again, I've seen a lot of positivity over the years, and I think that helps with that um, audience creator relationship. Right, you're almost championing the creator on
yeah,
from the comments, and you're almost like a cheerleader. And we see that a lot on LinkedIn. And I saw a comedy video on that recently, right? Which is like everyone's thrilled for each other, right? We're all thrilled for each
yeah,
other's success. But actually, there is some truth in that.
yeah.
It does feel like as an audience of a creator, you get to be their champion and cheerleader, and it's a two-way thing, right? As the creator, you can thank the person for their support, and it's all very nice, Guy.
It's a really good point. I really like the access element is what I always
Mm,
think about. And it's kind of access in I hate to say it, but like safe space because of the
mm,
nature of the platform being professional. Um, it's the fact that any comments are very transparent. All of it's linked to your job, it's linked to your company, it's how you earn money, etc., etc. So it kind of takes away that potential for, as you said, hate speech, trolling. I'm sure there are
mm,
corners of the platform where that happens, maybe, but I've never really seen it, and it doesn't sound like you have either. So
mm,
it gives license to a better conversation, and I think probably a more grown up conversation, where it can be more collegiate. Um, One of the things we talked about again off of um, the project we worked on was A, it was for HubSpot, and B, it was an event that they put on in London. And one of the stories that you told me, or some of the feedback they asked for, was really interesting around people who were contacting you prior to the event and wanting to meet up. And it'd be great to hear that from your side as well, particularly around the requests that were coming in.
Yeah, well, like I say, I've partnered with a few brands recently, but the HubSpot opportunity was the first one that was linked to an event, and
Yeah.
it did feel really special, right? Going down to London and getting to be part of that event was really special. Had a microphone in hand and enjoyed really engaging with that audience. Not everyone wanted to speak to me, but I think that was the microphone, not me, right? That's what put people off. That's what I kept saying. But like I say, before I could even take my coat off and go to the cloakroom, I had someone who'd approached me who wanted a selfie for LinkedIn, and they were really excited, really complimentary of the content. And I was encouraging that throughout the day. Right, let's take a selfie, tag me on LinkedIn, I'll engage with the post, let's create a little bit of buzz.
Yeah.
And it certainly worked. I had messages from other creators saying that they had FOMO because they'd just seen content all day about the event, and I think that's what LinkedIn's really good at, right?
Yeah.
Creating some buzz, and yeah, I certainly enjoyed doing that with real people at that event.
Yeah, I think that was when you told me about the selfie thing. I immediately I got in touch with Kristen and I was like, um, and told her, I said, could you imagine me saying to you a couple of years ago, oh, there's a B2B, customer experience SaaS go-to-market event, and one of the people going is getting getting selfies taken. You'd be like, well, why? Why? Um, but I just found that I found that really, really interesting around,
Mm,
the relationships that is a bit, or the view or perception of creators within LinkedIn specifically, but in B2B environments that, that kind of connection is being created. And
mm,
it comes down to a few things, I suspect. It's almost like the value exchange between creator and audience.
mm,
But also things like, trust, and just trusting, that being a trusted voice and being someone that they feel like, they can get, whether it's, good advice from a professional level, or entertainment, or, like in your case, just having someone kind of represent their sector in a really engaging way and in an
mm.
entertaining way. Yeah, that was really interesting. Um, on that front, in terms of the connection between audience and creator, are there things, say, aligned to the space you serve or the sector you work in, um, around engagements that we don't see, in, like you talked about in the comments? But is there a lot of traction between your audience and yourself around, they want to make a decision around, whether it's coaching, whether it's sales, go to market, maybe vendors, tech, etc., and they're like, oh well, you know, I trust Tom. He's someone who I see on LinkedIn a lot. He's got profile. Um, I'll reach out to him and I'll have a conversation with him, or I'll ask for a Teams meeting for a quick chat. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, the DMs when it comes to social selling, that's really where the magic happens, right? So I talk a lot about content as being the conversation starter, right? That's where you highlight the problem, or you talk about a pain, or you give a little bit of value, but actually it's the DMs and it's the stuff that's away from the public view. That's where deal conversations are happening. And that's where I would also say real conversations are happening. And when I say that, it's funny because I'm so used to creating video content and being really open with my profile that I often forget that there are some people who wouldn't actually leave a comment
Yeah,
on my content because it's too public,
yeah,
right?
yep.
And I've also had feedback from people that have said, my manager has seen that I've been liking your satirical videos and I've got in trouble
Really?
because they think they think that, wait a second, are they saying that's what I'm like as a manager, and they've been told to delete comments. And this kind of blows my mind. I think to myself, wow, I don't ever think really much about how kind of public it is when you do engage. So certainly the DMs, especially when it comes to content around my boys, I'll often get people who'll message me privately about those kind of posts.
Yeah.
But also with like, when I'm talking about like sales coaching, if someone's ready to speak to my sales coach, that's going to happen as a DM. They're not going to leave that as a public comment, right? That's going to be much more personal, and it's going to be private between me and them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we've heard that feedback from a lot of other, say, influencers, creators that we work with. That, as you put it, like that's the real action. The content piece is the gateway for them to actually feel like they can come to you and for whether it's advice, whether it's like social selling for what you're selling, and there's that almost that trust built in already. And because
I think it's
because
really
they've got the access, it's almost that access has been granted. It's an easier conversation.
much easier, but it is also worth saying that if someone does decide to send you a DM and they are complimentary of your content, often I don't know who they are because they've never liked anything. I've never seen them in the comments, right? But they've been, and we call it lurking on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They've been silently lurking and enjoying the content. So, whenever I'm coaching anybody about social selling, I always say, look, forget the metrics and the likes and the comments, because often, it's not those people that you're going to end up selling to. It's the ones who are kind of lurking in the background, who are just seeing the content every week, taking it in.
Yeah.
And when they're ready, that's when the conversation's ready
Yeah.
to happen.
And they're potentially more like going back to the, putting your hand up in public. They're potentially more senior, and they will be from maybe a generation where they're like, oh God, I don't want to I don't want to say anything, but what I do want to do is I want to have a conversation with them. I want to chat to them. I want to get to know them. I want to understand how we can work together. And that kind of makes total sense. So, do you think that's the key when I think about this space and say traditional marketing channels or traditional digital marketing channels in particular? Do you see that as that's almost the extra thing that this space gives brands, or outside of that, the interaction or the access or the conversation? What do you see as being the big things that this space is great for from a brand perspective?
I think it's almost that excitement level of being able to engage with a creator, right? So, how excited am I going to be if a brand page comments on my content or reacts to like what I'm doing? Not as much, because they're kind of faceless, right? But if an influencer who I really admire, who I've been kind of following, if they engage or I get to see that they've interacted with me, it's really exciting. And I still get those little kind of flutters even now when a big creator will comment on my video and I'll think, wow, a few years ago they didn't have a clue who I was. Never mind commenting on my content, right? And I think it works both ways. I've joined Zoom calls with people who've DM'd me, right? And they're just excited to be on the call because they've seen the videos.
Yeah.
They've got a big smile on their face. Oh, hi Tom. Oh, we love the videos. That's often when I have to let them down gently and say, those videos are heavily edited.
And I'm not that funny off the
exactly.
cuff. Yeah.
That's it. I have to really bring them down to earth. But that excitement's there, right? The excitement exists, and I feel it with creators that I follow, and I know it's happened to me before with people that I've met. So
It's really interesting. Yeah, because we've been. It's funny because we've been talking to clients about what the differentiator is with this space and other channels that they will have been applying marketing budget to, and that's one of the things that we see as being a real big deal for like going forward. maybe next year, maybe probably more like the year after, as this space kind of develops. But having that known uh, social media entity or persona almost as part of your setup as a brand, um,
Mhm.
and being able to leverage all of that goodwill and as you said, the excitement of following someone and then actually being in conversation with them as part of
Mhm.
a piece of business is, I think that's going to be
Mhm.
huge. Um, Outside of that, how do you see this? How do you see this space kind of developing over the next couple of years?
Well, it's like you said, it feels like we're only just getting started.
Yeah,
But I can already see that there's that kind of shift, right? Um, in marketing spend when it comes to, look, how are we going to promote what we're doing, and you know influencers and content creators are able to take advantage of that. It's it, I see it growing and growing, right? I also see it developing um, when it comes to like trusted advisors. When you start to see on LinkedIn more and more people are representing brands, could start to feel like the brand page is all over again, right? Just kind
yeah,
of speaking through creators.
yeah,
And I know we've spoke about this guy before, right? Opportunities that I take, I've either got to have used the product or service, have an affinity to it, or find it interesting and exciting enough to highlight that to my audience. And if it
yeah,
doesn't hit those, then I'm probably not going to kind of represent.
yeah,
Not all creators are like that. There's money to be made, and people will put their kind of name to things. So the way I see it developing is actually, look, the more and more we see creators doing brand deals, it's going to come down to trust again, right? Who have I followed over the years that
yeah,
I actually trust enough with this information to go, okay, so they've put their name to this brand for a reason, right? Not just for the money.
yeah. No, no, I agree. It's really in its infancy, but it's one of
Mm.
those. I think it's one of those channels that if not handled correctly, could eat itself. Because there
Yes.
could be a bit of a gold rush, and it's like, and then suddenly it blows itself up because it's just not handled correctly. And I think you've got to have, as you said, you've got to have people who've got a bit of integrity about them to go, right, this is the audience I serve, almost audience
Mm.
first. This is who I speak to. This is who trusts me, and you need to kind of repay that trust by, you
Mm.
know, as you said, working with brands or collaborating on content that you feel is the right fit for them as well as you.
Mm.
I think that's a really important distinction. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, we'll see. Because if you look at the consumer space, there's definitely elements of that. They've gone through their peaks and troughs of it being a space that people have shunned, and then it's kind of come back into fashion because things have changed. So,
Mm.
but yeah, it's you're right. It's at the very start, and it's all very exciting. So
Mm.
it's good to be a part of it. Um,
Yeah.
let's go back to the personal branding element, and almost the. So we work with clients who a lot of our clients where our contacts are say in the UK or EMEA, but the brand is a US brand. Um,
Mm.
do you see in terms of personal branding, do you see a difference between how personal branding is viewed or executed against between UK and US? Because if I think about the video feed on
Mm.
LinkedIn, that's quite new, a few months in now. It feels quite well. What I'm getting is quite US centric. There's quite a lot of US talking heads, US personas, etc. And when I see that content, it does feel very different to when I see a UK person who is trying to leverage personal brand, etc. A, have you
Mm.
kind of seen that? And B, have you got a view on that? Have you got a view on that? It'd be really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. we see a lot more video content coming out of the US. They're more confident, right,
Yeah.
than us, and I can really, I know that's a huge generalization, but everyone that I speak to in the UK about video content on LinkedIn does exactly the same face. Oh no, I can't. Oh no, everybody says the same thing,
Yeah.
and I've had this feedback even yesterday. I made a video, I watched it back, and I thought, no way,
Right.
no, God, no, could I? I recorded it. I recorded it 15 times. This is what we do in this side of the pond, right?
Yeah.
We feel, and I again, I said this on a show recently. We just feel like a bit of a prat, sometimes. Like I can't bring myself to hello everybody, I'm doing a video. Like we're more awkward. Whereas what I've seen out of the US, right, is like, hey, this is my morning coffee routine, or like, hey,
Yeah.
you straight down the lens. I'm going to teach you 5 things,
Yeah.
and
But one take hero.
there is no shred of self doubt, right? We watch this, and I've done this before in amazement because we just think, oh, I could never, I could never do that. I think it's about finding your own style, right? You'll never get from me a morning routine video, right? I'm not gonna do that kind of content,
Right. Yeah.
right? Unless you want to see me eating a crumpet with some kids, right? But my point is this:
Yeah.
there is a place for everybody at the table, and actually, when we see those videos that are coming out of the US that are all quite kind of similar, and they're they're,
Yeah.
they're heavily edited, and actually, look, in the UK, there's not a lot of people making video
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
So like, I try and inspire as many people as possible to try it, to at least try it. I watched some of my videos from 5 years ago with the team yesterday, and they were terrible. Right? They were awful. I don't know what I was saying, Guy. I was just rambling on, and those videos are still live. You can see them if you scroll past down far enough. But what I was doing is I was just trying things. I was just pressing record and kind of
See what
trying
happens.
to figure things out. And I think this is the way. And the Americans are better than that because they're more confident. They're happy to just hit record, and everything's great. We need a bit of that, I think.
Yeah. We sponsored a social media event last month, and there was quite a lot of conversation around personal brand. We had a guy who is works with Gary Neville. Has worked with Gary Neville on his personal brand, a guy called Ash Jones,
Great.
who talked about this a lot on when he was interviewed. It was like a fireside chat set up, and yeah, he kind of mentioned exactly what you just said. It's kind of like it's just kind of, well, he actually said he's a total introvert. So the idea of him doing anything himself was like, really, he struggles to do that. But all of his clients is very much kind of like, that's what you've got to aspire to get to, because there's a real gap in the market. There's a real opportunity around video and being able to storytell and yeah, be part of a conversation that, or almost get over yourself, almost be able to just get, like you were saying about from a US perspective, it's like, right, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not even thinking about not doing it. It's just kind of, I'm just going to get on with it. So yeah, no, it does feel like from a UK perspective, there is some opportunities there. It's just people grabbing it, I guess.
Huge opportunities, like you say. Whatever your thing is, you talked about introverts there,
Yeah.
right? Well, then that's your content. You want to make video content about being an introvert, even if you're kind of shy, even if the camera's not on you, right? That would be a good start, right? Just recording something else while you voice over. At least you've got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Because the amount of people that I speak to who will say, "Well, I wish I'd have started like 3 or 4 years ago." You
Hmm.
know, this is the time to start now. You'll make a year of terrible content, but it will inspire you to get better. I know it did for me.
Yeah. Okay. Um, we've actually got a fan question that has come into has just come into us.
Great. From my
Um,
mum.
Mrs. A. Boston, is that right? It says here, I'll keep it anonymous.
Yeah.
There is a misconception that B2B related content should be super serious, but the
Mm,
popularity of your content indicates that that is not necessarily the case, and we all like to have a good laugh. Uh,
mm.
When did you see this style translate into business sales for you? So I think that's right. That's almost trying to say, when you started your content creation, when was it that you sparked that this was going to be something that you could, would be a bit of a, would be positive for the businesses either you were working with or your own business.
Yeah. Well, again, I go back to when I started building my brand. Right. You have to kind of play the cards that you've been dealt. And I knew that I had a bit of a flair for putting a funny spin on things. Right. Let's just say that I've done it for years,
Yeah,
and it only made sense to me to kind of use that to highlight a pain that I was solving, to start conversations offline about the solution for that pain. So it wasn't really kind of super thought out. I was like, okay, what if I kind of put a fun spin on some of the problems that I fix, and I just kind of created some skits and some sketches about those problems. Um, they did well, not because they were hilarious, right? And anyone who's outside of our space will will tell you that they did well because they resonated with people, and
yes,
people understood that's, oh, okay, I get that.
yeah,
That's happened to me. This person understands the pain that I'm kind of going through. Like, almost me using comedy was not even a huge part of it, right? And I'm often most proud of the videos that do well, that people say this is so relatable,
yeah.
rather than this is so funny, because um, you know humor's subjective, right? And
So yeah,
actually,
yeah,
what's funny and what's not, I don't get to decide that. But I think that, yeah, again, to that question, traditionally, humor's not been kind of used in B2B, but everyone solves a problem, right?
yeah.
And comedy is pain. So I just think that it seems like a
No brainer. Yeah,
no
yeah,
brainer to me.
yeah, yeah. No, good. Yeah, that's I can totally get that. So on that front, so in terms of content, whose content do you follow and really enjoy on socials? And also to that end, is there in any of those people you've followed, have they done any work with a brand where you've looked at that and gone, wow, they've done that really well. That makes total sense.
Mm,
I really thought that was well thought out, and almost that's a bit of an inspirational aspiration for when you work with someone, you'd want to kind of nail it like that.
mm, mm. The one that springs to mind straight away is the recent one that Will Aitken did with Fiverr. Right, they're not a traditional kind of SaaS brand, and I was like, "How's this collab gonna work?"
Yeah.
But what Will did is he used Fiverr to get a T-shirt printed for $5,
Yeah.
and then he invested his own money in a T-shirt for $100 and for $300, and he asked his audience to identify the three T-shirts.
Okay.
And I just sat there thinking, what a really clever way to work with a brand, to have fun with it, to engage the audience, and to highlight the fact that Fiverr offer kind of cheap services.
Was there a
It's a
T-shirt?
brand
Was
that
it? Did Fiverr? Was there a company on Fiverr that printed the T-shirt for $5 or something? Is that was it?
I think they
They
designed
designed it. Got it. Okay.
the t-shirt logo,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
Will went ahead and got it made. But he'd also paid someone much more. The engagement was really high on the video, and I just thought, okay, that's how you work with a brand, right? And if you were kind of new to the game, you would just be like, hey, there's a company that I'm being paid to talk about, blah, blah, blah. Whereas he'd sort of taken on a project, brought it all to life, engaged the audience. So, no, I thought that was really, really strong.
I suppose also that shows, like you just said, it shows the difference between almost a seasoned creator like
Mm,
Will, and yourself to someone who
mm,
is just starting out, because it's kind of they're trying to find their voice, their style, but also trying to find how they work with a brand in a way that is
mm,
interesting for them, interesting for their audience. Um, but yeah, it's kind of definitely interesting to see the different ways people are approaching it. And
mm,
when you see
mm.
and when you see one that is very, very creative like that, it totally stands out.
Yeah,
And it's memorable, like you were able to recall that pretty quickly. And
yeah,
if you think about advertising on the internet, it's, like standard advertising. If you ask people what's the last ad they saw or clicked on, forget it, no chance.
yeah. Couldn't tell you. 100%. Yeah.
Cool. Do you know what? I think that wraps us up nicely today. So I wanted to say thank you very much for taking time out of your busy festive afternoon. And I'll let you crack on with more mince pies.
I was going to say, yeah, they've been looking at me throughout this conversation, so I can go camera off now.
Cool. Cheers, Tom. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Guy.